Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome in to another episode podcast to talk about our favorite team, the Arizona Cardinals. And today we're going behind the enemy lines again. 2 weeks ago, we had the Seattle Seahawks, Brandon from the Hawks Nest here. We're going to have him right back again, and we're going to talk Week 14 Cardinals versus Seattle Seahawks. Super excited about this matchup. Hopefully an opportunity for the Cardinals to come back here and get back within this division. But before we get started here, let me just give a quick shout out here to the sponsors of the AZ Sports Fan here on YouTube. BetUS. If you're looking for a brand new sports book, BetUS is the way to go. Currently, right now, if you use promo code YouTube150, they will provide you with a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and a 125% sign-up bonus on the following two. That's going to be using promo code YouTube150 upon signing up. Of course, bet responsibly and bet within your means. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's go and get started here. Let's go and bring up Brandon. How you doing, man? It's been a while. Well, I mean, obviously not really. We met Tuesday and then 2 weeks ago and then, but how you been, man?
I'm great. It's always is a little strange when you're playing teams 2 times in 3 weeks. It's just an odd feeling, especially when we're in the division and you play each other already so very often. But I'm feeling obviously pretty good about my team and where we're standing right now. So feeling
Yeah.
good going into this matchup.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned this before. The emotional roller coaster that your team was going through 2 weeks ago, and now it kind of felt like it flip-flopped. And now the Cardinals right now with a 2-game losing streak. Now it's not over yet. 5 games left for the Cardinals, and still behind 1 game left. Let me ask you a question here, and we kind of touched on this on your channel here. Who do you think is going to be this division right now? It's kind of up in the air about a 1 game. I know you're probably going to lean on yourself, but who's that one team? If you think it's going to be the Rams, or hell, if you want to just throw 3 teams in there, or if you want to throw the 49ers, that's fine. But what do you think is going to be this 2-headed race or 3-headed race for this division?
Well, I'm probably leaning a little bit more with where we're at and where the Rams are at, as much because where things have trended between those 2 teams and where they're headed, where they're at from a health standpoint, just how they're playing in general. I got to say, though, it's one of those things where you're at the top division. It's probably rare a point where we're at the top division this late, and there's still kind of a lack of overall confidence in being at the top of the division. You know, it's almost like the moment one of us on this NFC West panel has gotten high on the hog and feeling good about themselves, right about time they get humbled. So I'm trying to maintain my level of let's make sure we're sure about this before we're sure about this.
Yeah.
But I do feel like we're playing our best football. Defense is especially coming along, and I think with the Rams they've just gotten healthy and they seem to be getting bit by bit better. But it's still anybody's division. I don't think there's any clear favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes down to this here, and you kind of mentioned the defense has really come along very well, especially against the Arizona Cardinals. Leonard Williams wreaked havoc in that last matchup here with the Arizona Cardinals. But I've noticed here on the injury report that you got a lot of people on the injury report. Let me know what your best thoughts, because right now while we're recording this video, you guys got a list of people on there. Now, obviously, some big notable names: DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker, as well as Leonard Williams as well. Now, they didn't practice on Thursday. Now, like I said, we are recording this on Friday morning, so things can change from Friday to Saturday and then obviously Sunday. What is your best thoughts on their availability? Are any concern coming your way from the Seahawks camp?
Not really, no. Obviously, guys are definitely on the injury report for a reason because they're hurting, but nobody on the injury report that's on there would I expect to miss that we weren't already anticipating missed or that's already on IR. So I think nobody's really got something that they can't kind of fight through, especially this time of year when everything counts so much. I would expect the team to throw out the full force of what they're bringing to bear in this game. And so it's everyone's hurting this time of year. A lot of those guys, you're giving them days off in a Leonard Williams case because he's played a lot of football. Give him that extra rest day, vet rest day, and that type of thing. And, there's probably something he's dinged up with, but it certainly didn't slow him down the past 2 weeks.
Absolutely. So the last time we met, defensive matchup to the very end. Unfortunately, Kyler Murray throws a pick six. You guys go for a field goal, miss it, but it was a 6-point swing here. Ugly rain element type of game here for the Cardinals. We're not really used to it. Let me ask you this. Are you worried about the Cardinals the second time around? I know it's really hard to sweep a division rival. What are your thoughts on this game in general? Now that we're going to be playing at our home, and I don't really care about the home field advantage. We don't really have a big one. I'm not going to lie to you. But when it comes down to obviously, playing on a dome, weather's not going to be very much of a factor. What is your thoughts on how you think this game's going to come about?
Yeah, I do think that does shift a little bit of an advantage to the Cardinals. Though, I mean, sometimes you would think you got a team like Cardinals who runs the ball, gets downhill, has a bigger back. The elements, traditionally speaking, would work in that team's favor because those bigger backs hard to bring down, all that harder to bring down when you can't get your footing. But I do tend to think that this is probably going to help a little bit more to to the Cardinals offensively being able to get more done, that rain was very impactful. You add it on top of the noise and the volume that you have to deal with in that stadium as a 1-2 kind of punch. And it's two things you got to legit kind of overcome a bit, especially not being used to it playing in the desert where it tends to be, warm and climate controlled. Geno does tend to play his best ball indoors and not out in the elements either. So there's a little bit of a tit for tat with this, but I would still expect us to not come anywhere close to holding James Conner to 9 yards rushing, and we're going to get much better. And you guys also have a bit of that thing angle I always talk about where teams play each other at different times of the year, where as far as that desperation factor and that understanding that, look, we're right up against the wall here. We lose this game, there's no more room for error versus the other team that might I think there's that human nature thing of kind of sometimes just, well, we got a little, we can ease off a little bit of the stick, right? Like we'll re-engage it in a week from now, right? We can kind of hit that. And I think it's just that you'd hope as a fan they didn't do that, but I do think that sometimes does somewhat set in, especially over a long NFL season.
How are you guys, right, media, content creators, how are you looking at this Cardinals versus Seahawks game? Obviously, round 2 for us, but do you guys look at this as a must-win like we do? Because I'm not gonna lie to you, I mean, like you mentioned a little earlier, it's kind of to the point right now in the season where if the Cardinals can take care of business here and hopefully get a win, then you got the Patriots, and then you got the Panthers right after. So, like, I know right now we don't want to look too far ahead because we've been bit, right? You've seen me puff my chest, and then of course with my hood the next week after because I'm just so bummed out. How are you guys looking at this game? Are you looking at this as a must-win as well, or just kind of like another game on your schedule? Because we're looking at this as a must-win.
I don't know if it's a must-win necessarily in that spot. I think that we have a little more wiggle room than you guys do, but not a lot. Just that extra, game or whatever where we're at that you feel a little more comfortable with it. But there is a sense of this of what you can accomplish here with a win on this and what you can set the stage for. Because while we are not going to be in this division in the number 1 seed realm of things, we're currently sitting number 3. And that's going to get you an opportunity where if, let's just say, and I don't want to be greedy with this because like I said, this is completely wide open. So I'm not saying we'll run away with it, but if we get this win and we can set the stage for really down the stretch, only probably needing to get 2 more wins in the last 4 games, you probably get the division. You might have that last Ram game at the end of the year. It doesn't even matter for anything where it's almost a de facto bye if you can set the stage. So part of me wonders if that might push a bit of this urgency from the players where they understand, well, why it's not a make and break like it is for your Cardinals right now. It is one where if we can go and take this game, we really set that stage up to be able to get into the playoffs right, where it's not a bye, but it's the second best thing to having a bye then, a bye before the final game of the week, and then you get a home playoff game.
It's so fascinating, man. This division right now is just to the point where it's just back and forth. It's just absolutely nuts. Well, let's talk about JSN here real quick. Obviously DK Metcalf on the injury report, as well as K9, which is Kenneth Walker. Now, let me ask you this here real quick. We're seeing kind of a emergence of a consistent JSN. Do you expect that in this game as well? Because I'm not gonna lie to you, both of our offenses were trying to get as much as they possibly can in that Seattle game. But I feel like the biggest X factor on the offensive side of the ball for you guys was JSN. And it was just real quick passes, whether it was that little angle route or like a screen or whatever you want to call it. But he made a real big noise against the Arizona Cardinals. Do you guys expect that? Or do you think maybe more DK Metcalf's going to be more involved?
No, I think it's it goes a little bit more to him because it's where the twosome work well off each other. It's probably what you guys are gonna have to do for Maserati Marv eventually and getting him that underneath. I mean, Trey does a little bit of this for you guys, but nothing like a pure slot for the outside one. A tight end doesn't quite do it the same way a slot will do it for that receiver. And that the number 1 takes the double team. The slot then has all this room to work with. And that's what happens with DK is he's going to naturally pull those double teams to his side, especially if you don't trust your number 1 corner. And then now everything else opens up for this slot guy underneath. And that's why he's such a good pairing with DK is that they can really work off of each other in that way. And you've got to have the only guys that I think have really given JSN the problems this year are those guys that are some of your upper level slot cornerbacks in this league and their ability to stand up. If you don't have that, he can kind of expose you. Him and Geno the past 5 weeks have gotten on really that chemistry, same page that even last year that you didn't necessarily have, or just locking in for whatever reason at this time. But he's integral to this offense, and those quick throws you talk about a lot of times are those option route throws where Geno and JSN are basically just feeling the leverage. This is what makes these slot receivers so tough in this day and age, where a Jefferson, a Cooper Kupp, an Amon St. Brown, they can dominate from the slot because it's so much different than the outside guys. DK, you press him, you run bracket coverage on the backside on him, and you swing a safety over the top. And you can, with that kind of coverage, you can relatively shut a receiver down. Any receiver in this league in a lot of ways knew that. You get him in the slot, it's harder to drive those double teams down in that way. You start messing your coverages up when you do that a little bit more versus the guy, being cover two, you got the trail, safety comes over the top. It's just naturally built within your coverages to roll it that way. So this is why slots are emerging, is then they can be true number one wide receivers, even when they're not true number one wide receivers.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, your offense is running really well. I'm not gonna lie to you. When we were playing the Vikings last week, I also saw a scoreboard watching with you guys and watching the Jets, and like I wasn't watching the game per se, but like at one point I was so excited. I was like, oh yeah, they're losing. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Just real quickly, I don't want to dive too much into this Jets game. What the heck happened? Like what did just the Jets become the Jets and just completely fall down? Did Aaron Rodgers just suck the rest of the way? Because at one point you blinked and it was what, like 21 zip, something like that, or like
Yeah.
what happened? Like, how'd you guys make this great comeback?
Well, you first had a special teams utter collapse in that first half. 3 fumbles, 2 lost, a kick return touchdown, a block extra point, big returns on the day for the kick return game. It's about as bad as I've seen from a Hawk team. And that put you behind the 8 ball. But like you saw with us defensively, and this is what we've seen the past few weeks with this team, where about that Rams game, something changed and locked in. Ernest Jones's presence here helped, certainly, but it's a different defense. They're giving up about 12 points a game throughout that span. And what you're seeing them do it is not just land by luck or happenstance. It's that you're watching them, maybe even you get a point or two to start out, but then it starts to lock down as this team goes on. So 8 straight possessions for the Jets without a single score to finish that game. And that's just the defense completely stamping it down and saying, no more. We're not going to let you pass. Ye shall not pass. And they've been playing like that. They just have. And this is McDonald. This is why you hired him, is you thought you're getting the McVay mind of an equivalency on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm not saying that we have that necessarily in what Sean brought to the offense and how he kind of changed things and moved the ball forward there, but there's a lot of indications we might just.
I like that reference. You Gandalf, love it.
He's got the staff, man.
Yeah, right. That's all I can think of too. That's amazing. So let's talk about this defense here real quick. You are also going to be getting your number one pass rusher back, right?
Oh
Owasu,
yeah,
right?
you got.
So,
I'll make you say it. What was that name?
is it Owasu? Is that?
Nwosu.
Oh wow, no, I was way off. Way off.
Yeah, it's a tough one. That's not one we don't run across in America a lot, with that pronunciation on those 2 letters together. So
Yushina Nwosu?
that's close enough. Uchenna Nwosu.
Okay. No, not even close. Okay, cool. What type of impact do you think he's going to bring? Because obviously Leonard Williams has wreaked havoc against the Cardinals 2 weeks ago. Having him on here, what does that mean for this defense? And you guys are already kind of hitting a stride. What do you expect from him in his first game back?
Well, you're late into the year, your body's retired, and you would like to go into rotations at times, but you got to think your Cardinals are probably having this at times where because your injury situation to Gardeck and Ojolari, and I know you made the trade for Cooper, but you get your edges thinned out a little bit. It's probably why Darius Robinson coming back is so helpful, because these guys are tired, man. They played too many snaps this point in the year. It's 17-game season. And so adding a guy in now that you could not only round out the rotations and elongate them out, take 10, 15 snaps off these guys throughout the rest of the season. That's almost cumulatively a game when you get to the end of the year, if he's able to do that. But really the big part of it is that you don't have a drop off then an impact. And if anything, he actually is above the other 2 guys potentially in his level of play and what he brings on that. So it really serves those 2 purposes, a big necessity, and it just can't do anything but help this defense. He's a really good pass rusher, man. Every year of his career, he was getting better and better and better. And he had a kind of a quiet start because he was a really young kid that was drafted pretty high by the Chargers, but he was stuck behind Bosa and Khalil Mack through that initial rookie contract. And so, he wasn't going to push those guys for starting. He's not that good, but he is a really good player, and he has consistently got better as that younger guys come along. And last year he just had that injury right where he was really ascending. So if he's healthy, he's a problem against you guys.
Oh man, this is going to be a very, very interesting matchup here for the Cardinals. Obviously, I don't know why. It might be because we're not playing in Seattle with the downpour of the rain coming up. I feel like more points is going to be implemented. Now I know you were just talking about your defense, about them not allowing more than, what you said, 12 points the last few games. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Okay, so let me ask you this: who is? And I'm just kind of going away past this game. Who is going to be right now the best quarterback in the NFC West? Right now, who's playing the best quarterback in the NFC West, in your opinion?
Well, I think Geno Smith's playing the best quarterback right now. I think Brock Purdy for some of the year was at that spot. I think he's quieted off quite a bit. Stafford certainly has an argument to be made, and Stafford and Geno has dealt with similar things where both of them have had to go up against a lack of having good pass pro this year. In my opinion, it's been worse for Geno, and I think the Rams have at least run blocked well, which Geno has not gotten. And, this is something we've debated and talked a lot about on the roundtable, and that I have very strong and passionate thoughts on this. And that is that I think that not just on from our talks, but just in general in the football landscape, our view of quarterbacking and what brings successful quarterbacking play, in my opinion, would really stand to do well to change in the outlook of fans in general and their way of it, and the simplicity by which they apply to the position in their evaluation of it. And it just kind of, well, I see it or I don't see it kind of thing.
Right.
Look deeper. And it's a position that is required and needs the help of others to ascend. It's not one that operates on its own. I'm agree with a guy like Harbaugh this preseason that said offensive line is the only position that exists unto itself. That's the only position that doesn't rely on other people to do their job. Every other position on the football field is going to need somebody else to do their job for them to be successful. And I think that gets forgotten about with quarterbacks a lot. And why it's pertinent with Geno is because no quarterback in this division, whether he's the best or not, Mike, on this one, no quarterback in this division has had to deal with as much of the deficiencies as he's had to deal with, not only this year, but the past 3 years that he started for the Seahawks. Piss poor defense by and large. It's gotten good this year. Part of the reason you're at top of the division. When it's piss poor and you had an offensive line and you couldn't run block and you couldn't pass protect and your scheme was tired and archaic, hey, guess what? He couldn't overcome that. Now, when some of these things have been, taken care of this year, where just even a defense, hey, just a modernized scheme. Hey, you're actually targeting the middle of the field. For years, we were 32nd targeting the middle of the field in the passing attack. Why? Because Coach Carroll didn't want to target the middle of the field because he thought that that's where you get more turnovers. Less turnovers outside the numbers, so that's where we're going to live. But Mike, what do you think happens when you do that for 7 or 8 weeks? What do you think the opponents do when you do that for 9 or 10 or 11 straight weeks or for 2 straight years?
Yeah.
They go to the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Why cover it if they're not throwing to it?
Yeah.
32nd rate and to a good degree. And so he's gotten those benefits this year. And from those benefits, you're seeing even a little bit better Geno. And what happens now long-term if you can get a line, not to dominant, but to middle of the road, not to back in 20s on run blocking, not to back in 20s on pass blocking, but just to middle of the road. And I think you would see even a better version of Geno than the one you're seeing right now.
Let me ask you real quick, and I know we're kind of a little short on time, but Kyler Murray, how do you feel about him? I know I don't expect you to watch every single game or watch any film on Kyler Murray. Do you kind of feel like he's very similar in terms of, like, in order for him to be, and I know we got some Cardinal fans already saying he's top 10. I'm a little bit more critical on Kyler Murray than probably any other people out there, but, like, how do you feel about it? If you feel like if you do get him, because you're the first one that brought up the idea of, like, bringing in potentially another wide receiver, like a slot guy, and I was like, oh, no. But, now I'm starting to kind of look at all wide receivers now in the draft here, but do you think that there's just some missing pieces? Now, again, this is just year 2 of Jonathan Gannon. We are making strides, but in terms of Kyler Murray only going to the playoffs once, right, and completely got wiped out. And now it's not Kyler Murray's fault. We shouldn't have been in that same league as the Rams that year. But how do you feel about Kyler Murray?
I get a little torn with him. I'm not the biggest of fans. As I've told you before, I've been in that stadium watching them play a couple of years ago. And if you're on ground level and you are at one end of an end zone and you see Kyler dropping back and he completely disappears behind 6'5" offensive linemen across the board, and you're watching the throws on the day where there's no throws happening between the tackle boxes, right, meaning that he's losing sight of the player going, here comes a crosser. I don't see him. Oh, there he is. Now I can throw it. And that does stand out to me with him watching both the tape and just the feel on him at times is that there's stuff he has to sometimes, and this was the way it was with Russ too. When you're 5'9", you're 5'9". There's no overcoming that. And with Russ, what he would do is he would line up in the shotgun an extra 2 yards deep, but then that would mess up the pathway and approaches of the edges because now they just line out wide and they run their ass off as fast as they can to him. And you're almost having a direct path and the linemen are trying to kick step out into their pass set and they can't reach it, right? Because he's back deeper. You've just kind of messed up the angles for the offensive lineman when you go back there. So there's some things to him where I think he can be successful, and I certainly would like to see him with another playmaker opposite Marv. I feel like you guys are just a little light there, even with McBride. I feel like that it doesn't even have to be a guy that's a dominant, it's just that steady, quintessential number 2 wide receiver or a really fine kind of dynamic slot in there as a counterpunch to it. I think could go far, but I do have some worries with Kyler a little bit on him. I think that if you keep him in the pocket you guys did where you guys were at your best this year, 25 to 32 passing attempts a game, that if you have the right supporting staff around him and you have the defense built, he can go win you a Super Bowl. But again, I'm of that opinion that it's not this tiny little pocket of just special guys that are like the
Right.
superheroes that, bullets bounce off their chest who can go win the Super Bowl. I'm of the belief that it's a lot wider margin that can get it done. And he truly does have talent. So, that's the part that he brings. There's no undeniable part there.
Yeah, no, the ability he's got. I mean, the quickness and what he can do on off schedule plays, it's amazing. But yeah, the thought of, and I'm not even trying to throw like I'm not one of those guys that throw jokes out there. But I think there might be some sort of deficiency when he is back there. Like I think in terms of seeing the people, wide receivers, up the middle of the field, even if it's like a drag route, quick slant route. I think he does have some sort of issues with being able to see it over the line. Let's see what they do. I mean, right now, obviously the Cardinals are 6-6. I think if anybody would have asked, would we take that at this point? I think most people would say yes, we would take it because I don't think a lot of people really quite expect a lot from the Cardinals. But let me get your final prediction: Cardinals versus Seahawks, Week 14, and then we'll close up shop.
Yeah, and I think that it's just on that last final point there, real quick too. He's still got some potential there to do it, but it's that what we did in the last game, what you saw us do was with our pass rush, and it was very.
Yeah.
Going back and watching the 22, it was very, very straightforward in that we're not giving you the exits on the edges of the tackles out the back of the pocket. We're going to force you up into the pocket, and that's where you're getting Brussels. The same thing, did not want to do that type of stuff, right? They want to pirouette out the back and do the cool, super cool spin move and get to the edge and then look down, and that's not always an opportunity. And a good defensive coordinator will move around that with his pieces and their pass rush on it. Not to mention the mush rush, which can also sometimes accomplish that. I think this is a close game. I do think that this is one that potentially comes down to the wire. I keep coming back to, I'd like to say that we're going to lock it in, just go, but I think your Cardinals are going to give us their best punch. And every week, pretty much you guys show up. That's the thing with it. Last week was one of the first times you guys, for instance, on the penalty front, got kind of dinged with that. Most of the time, you guys keep a very clean game. And I think I'm going to anticipate that once again, especially playing at home. So I go 21-17. It's as much as just because of the trust and the faith of where the defense is at. And they've replicated these performances week after week here recently. And we're in a good place health-wise at this time of year where maybe, I know with what you saw in the injury report, dings and pings here and there removed. We're kind of at our most healthiest right now. Abraham Lucas back in, rolling fully. That's a huge addition there. And Uchenna coming back. So I think that'll be just enough to put us over the top.
Okay, perfect. Well, Brandon, I appreciate you. As always, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be closing up shop. We will be having his channel pinned in the description below. Go and show some love. He does exactly what I do, but for his respective team, the Seattle Seahawks. So, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, have a great rest of your day, and go Cardinals.
Appreciate it.